Dr. Michael Redivo, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Johann.
My pleasure. So I'd like to start off by hearing your professional path, how you got to where you are now.
Okay. Well, um, I guess my professional path could best be connected to this idea of having faith in the process. And what I mean by that is I didn't quite sure I knew what I was getting into, other than I felt like I was just being led. And through various challenging experiences I had growing up, I found myself pursuing a graduate education in clinical psychology in the Bay Area. And through this process, I have met some of the most amazing people, have worked on various teams, lived in some really cool places, and have been faced with lots of challenging training opportunities, a lot of terrific and agonizing growth opportunities, I guess you could say. Some of the experiences I've been blessed with and have had the opportunity to engage in have been working in community mental health, as a staff psychologist and also in leadership position, academia as a director of clinical training at a local graduate school here in the Valley of the Sun, Phoenix. I've been in private practice. I've done quite a bit of training and supervision. The supervision has been mostly, well, in Dallas and in Phoenix, and then a smattering of training throughout the country and here in the Valley. I've also been blessed with an opportunity to engage in business ownership. And over the last 10 years or so, was part of a private day school that we ran in a transportation company. And then most recently, pursued authorship and published a book about a year and a half ago.
Congratulations, that's a lot of work.
Thank you. Thank you.
And what are you excited about currently?
I'm excited about delving into helping parents, moms, and dads reconnect and ground their family culture in virtues and values. And having worked and wrote it and have written a book on that, and having to have had the opportunity to counsel moms and dads in creating a vision for themselves as parents and for how they want their family to be, what they stand for, and the values that guide the day-to-day behaviors in their home and how they relate as a family. That's been quite energizing and exciting.
That's wonderful. The society needs the strengthening of families, so thanks for doing that.
Yes.
By the way, for our listeners, can you just mention the title of your book and where you sell it?
Sure. It's called Values Grounded Parenting, a framework for raising healthy children. And it's being sold on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And you can also visit the website valuesgrounded.com, and you can get a book there as well.
Okay, great. Can you give us maybe a couple highlights from that book, which I imagine are also central to your work with families?
Sure. One of the highlights, or the focus is it's a four-pillar framework. And so in writing this, my bent as a professional has been, although I very much appreciate theory in research and the philosophy, I also believe in looking at what does this look like practically. So when I talk about vision and values, what the focus of the book is, what is this going to look like on Monday morning? What is this going to look like when you're dealing with discipline, boundaries, and limits? And so the highlights have been to help parents first invite them to answer the question, if you are leading and guiding your children, what is leading and guiding you?
Mm.
And that's where our noble or our shared vision comes to play. And
Mm-hmm.
so the book invites the reader and moms and dads to clarify what is guiding them. And then also, what are the values that you want to raise your children with? I also have 4 anchor values: respect, accountability, gratitude, and humility, which I believe are essential for all families. And then helping the reader, the parents, to see what does it mean to raise children with values. What does it look like? And so the book offers practical tips on how to operationalize or define your values behaviorally. So, for example, when children are behaving, or when children are angry and upset and perhaps a bit defiant, how does a parent engage the value of respect in relating to their child? So, inviting the child, hey, let's work on being angry and respectful at the same time.
Mm. So when you talk about, I'm sorry, we're going to continue there.
Uh-huh. Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay. When you talk about articulating your family's values with a shared vision, it reminds me of some of the work of Pat Lencioni. I don't know if that was influential to you at all.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I know people who have implemented that, and they've had a great experience with it in their families. Um,
Yes.
so, and then getting into your clinical background, what do you specialize in clinically?
So I work tend to work with children who have oppositional defiant behaviors. Um, I work with young adults who are struggling to launch. Certainly parenting, of course. Um, and I do a fair amount of family work, and it can really run in a variety of directions, whether it's working with families around grief, working with families around healthy boundaries, emotional communication, healing relationships. It can be a constellation of different kinds of issues.
Have you noticed a change in the prevalence of oppositional defiant disorder and failure to launch over the years?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've seen an emergence of what comes across as entitlement,
Mm,
or a sense of youth experiencing this. They want to do it their way, which supersedes kind of what we may think traditionally about what adolescence is like. But I think it's this informed, or this narrative that is swelling in social media. And then the failure to launch, I've seen that grow as well, where there's almost like a lostness, or a challenge with directionality for young men and women,
mm, mm,
and seeking, which I think is purpose, seeking a vision for their lives.
okay. To what extent do you think excessive digital technology use contributes to this?
I think it one of the roles developmentally I see with kids and teenagers is to engage their world. And part of that process involves an experience of vulnerability, trust, and um, it tends to, when you're engaging your world face to face, you are more accountable for dealing with just a variety of issues like peer pressure, establishing a healthy self-concept, reciprocity in relationships, support, learning how to love in healthy ways. And I think social media or the digital media can disrupt that process in the sense that emotional communication, for example, is not something that is necessarily is not shared face to face, but is done with all caps or done with symbols. And there's a lot of interpretation that goes on with the digital media. And there can be misinterpretation. There can be judgments that happen that create or that come from a place where children can distance or teens can distance through social media. So in other words, if they say something hurtful, they don't have to be in that space to look at necessarily the consequences. They can just log out or they can go on to another platform. And so that's the part where I think it's disrupted the capacity for kids to connect in healthy ways. Now, I see also a positive part to that, though, too, that it also can help kids connect. But in terms of what I recognize with how kids are able to experience healthy intimacy with each other, that's one of the challenges that social media presents or digital technology presents.
Sure. I'd love to hear if you're able to highlight 2 clinical lessons that you learned and internalized over the years.
Let's see. It's a great question. First, I'd say the power of the relationship, the healing nature of connection, and the value of trust and vulnerability. Also, the importance of parenthood and the family, that parents are leaders, and how they lead has significant implications for the health of their kids, their family, the community. I'd also say that I think effective treatment, if we look at more from the treatment standpoint, that I think effective treatment involves vulnerability. And it's a courageous willingness to open oneself to the process of taking healthy risks, to process difficult life experiences. And I don't think it's just the client. I think effective therapy is when both the therapist and the client, it's kind of a shared vulnerability, if you will.
What does the vulnerability look like from the therapist's point of view?
Asking open-ended questions, experiencing going into a place of pain and hurt with the client, and holding that space and not sure at times what direction may come of this. That uncertainty, if you will.
Yeah, takes humility.
Yeah, and having faith that, hey, if we go here, I trust that as you share your wound and we expose the wound, that healing is going to happen. But how that happens, you're right. Yeah, what there's a degree of uncertainty.
You ever get the feeling that a good therapy session is like a adventure, that maybe you have a rough sense of where you want to go, but there's a level of unexpectedness, and somehow it all kind of wraps up well together in the end?
Yes. Yeah. It's sort of a starting at a trailhead and kind of generally knowing where the direction is going to go, but not quite certain what the journey is going to hold. And there's excitement to it and some apprehension as well.
I'd love to switch over to the entrepreneurial side. You've engaged in different initiatives. What have you learned? What entrepreneurial lessons have you learned that you can share with us?
Hmm. Yeah, great question. I thought some about that. Um, One of the takeaways as an entrepreneur, and I've been in my entrepreneurial pursuits, I've been in leadership positions. And one of the key takeaways is the importance of having a healthy vision
Mm,
and values to guide. Um, so much when you, for me, when I've taken on new opportunities, there's an element of building the plane while you're flying it.
mm,
And if you're not, for me, if I wasn't careful and I didn't have craft a vision, I could easily be defined by my circumstances and
mm.
the snarky emotions that come along with that. And the vision, I think, for entrepreneurs helps protect us against being defined by our circumstances. But actually, it moves us, Johann, it moves us into a place where I have been not defined by my circumstances, but been refined. So, kind of like from the D to the R. And
Mhm.
that's been one of the important lessons. Another lesson, and it's related, is seeking faith in God and a transcendent purpose.
Mhm. Share with us your vision and values.
My vision as a professional and just as a dad and just a regular person is to glorify God. And it's been something that has taken shape over time. And it's a vision that I'm at times fuzzy about. And what I mean by fuzzy is I have to pump the brakes and look at and check myself and say, okay, how is what I'm doing putting myself in a position of glorifying God, taking me out of the process and looking more towards how is what I'm doing, how is what I'm engaging in um, being loving, being compassionate, if necessary, helping correct an unhealthy direction with an organization that I might be working with, or with a family that I might be working with, or with the person who stares back at me in the bathroom mirror. Um, and my values, um, I'd say humility and gratitude are real significant and challenging, especially humility on any given day. Um, and gratitude of looking at what I've been blessed with, and what I mean by gratitude, where I feel like I've grown into is a place where it's not just gratitude, which is important. Don't get me wrong, for a warm shower, for clean drinking water, for the health of my kids and the opportunity to practice, for the beauty of nature. Those are all important. And what I've leaned more into, or finding to be a very interesting experience, is being grateful for challenges and obstacles
Hmm.
and what can be revealed through those. And one of the things that I've had a lot of interest in, and of course, being an entrepreneur, we see this, is the importance of conflict. And I call it productive conflict. I think Patrick Lencioni calls it constructive conflict or something like that. But the experience of I'm not sure we grow unless there is some degree of us moving out of the zone from which we find familiar. And that, for me and for the people I've worked with in my family and my friends, that can rattle our cage. And what I mean by grateful is that if I can enter a place of gratitude, I can allow that experience of being somewhat rattled, not to avoid it, but to go into a more contemplative or reflective posture to say, hey, what am I, what is this, what might this be teaching me? How might I grow from this?
I really congratulate you for having gratitude for challenges. I think that's a sign of great wisdom.
Mm. Well, thank you.
All right. What are the dreams that you hope to accomplish professionally before you leave this earth?
Mm. Phew. Um, I'm real interested in the, making this values grounded framework more visible.
Hmm.
And I feel like the impact it's had on me and the families that I've counseled in the school, we had what was called the values grounded learning environment. And so I've done a fair amount of training of in organizations and schools about how do we grow into values? How do we let values define us versus our circumstances? And I guess a dream would be for those that are finding themselves kind of um, being defined by their circumstances, where there's significant peaks and valleys,
Hmm.
or there's just a almost day to day, I'm just winging it in life. Trying to help connect them with some semblance of grounding, with values that they can count on, that values and virtue that will not change over the course of time, but like unlike their circumstances. And so I guess the dream would be is to help people understand some of these concepts and help facilitate a community, if you would, a values grounded community, where people can then begin to share their ideas about, hey, I've got 3 kids at home, and this is what we're doing. Here's some of our values.
Hmm.
Or I work at this company, and this is sort of what we're doing, and this is how we're trying to make sure that we respect and honor one another's work and one another's experience, while not watering down the integrity of who we are. So I guess that would, I don't know if I articulated it that well, but I guess that would be the dream.
What would that community look like? Is it like a digital forum or?
So great question. So I'm learning. So yes, it would be a digital forum, perhaps like Facebook or other platforms where people
Mhm.
can share. And then also just a good old fashioned calling each other up and talking. Um, in my opinion, values are only valuable if we make them more visible.
Mhm.
And so it would be the digital platform in addition to um, people connecting face to face as well.
Mhm. Yeah, in terms of digital communities, what I've seen to be most effective is Circle. It's more,
Circle.
yeah, it's kind of it has less of this distractions than like Facebook or some other social media platform would have. But at any rate, at this point, I'd love to hear your recommendations of who is the best clinical psychologist you know, and who is the best entrepreneur that you know.
Hmm, the best. I guess I would, who I value would be, and we were just speaking about this before we went on to this recording, is Dr. Jordan Peterson.
Hmm.
And what I value about him um, is his capacity to be open to learning and growing from different perspectives, and backing up his sense of what is healthy and true with scholarly literature. So it's not just merely his opinion, but it's based on a lot of empirical findings, and just very well read, a lot of philosophy, the Bible. So, and the work that he does too, that he seeks to empower people to help them engage in things like, hey, be honest with yourself.
Mhm.
And we can look at that from various kind of clinical manifestations or theoretical perspectives, but it's just a good, solid, grounded truth of just the importance of being honest. That's just one example. So I would say he's one of the psychologists I truly I value, and an entrepreneur. I would, a buddy of mine named Scott. He started his work is a working in concessions over at the Phoenix Zoo, and he would sell this cool treat called kettle corn.
Mhm.
And through his process of learning this concession business, he then he switched lanes, and he got into the car wash business. And he's a man of faith, and he would often ask himself, what good am I contributing to the world by helping cleaning cars? So he kind of checked his vision. And what he's developed in conjunction with a team of other professionals is his team. He's grown from one car wash. They now have over 30 to 40 in the Midwest. And the work that he does at growing his staff is simply remarkable. And what I respect about him is, and this is what one of my entrepreneurial lessons that he helped me learn, was invest in people
Mhm.
and focus on a solid service,
Mhm.
and the business side will grow.
You
And
respect his values.
I'm sorry.
You respect his values.
Yes. Yes.
That's awesome. What's the name of his car wash business? If anyone's in the Midwest.
Watershed.
Okay. I love to hear about virtuous leaders from all sorts of backgrounds, including just simple, humble tasks that they do very well.
Mm,
That's a great service.
yes.
Is
And
there anything?
I've had the privilege of meeting some of his staff. He invited me to give a talk, and it is a true in terms of an entrepreneur, when we talk about servant leaders, that his leadership team embodies that.
Is there anything I didn't ask that you'd like to add?
No, I appreciate your curiosity and interest in some of these concepts. So I thank you for that.
Sure. Yeah. So, how can people follow your next steps?
So there's going to be to go on to the Values Grounded website, and I'm in the process right now of changing the website so that I can upload videos.
Mm.
So I'll be talking about some of these concepts like vision and values, and ways to discipline children, use conflict in healthy ways in short videos. And
Mhm.
so that's going to be happening here in the next 2, 3 months. And but for now, the website is www, or I think it's www.valuesgrounded.com. And there'll be more information on this new updated website. And there'll also be blogs, and then also social media. Will I believe I'm going to look into the circle. Thank you for that suggestion. And also Facebook and Instagram will be, I believe, involved.
It's really encouraging to know that there's people like you doing this good work, just good professionals, good clinicians, and with a positive vision and values. So I hope that we can have you over to Houston and hear you speak on this more.
Oh, well, thank you. I welcome that opportunity.
Sure. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Redivo.
Thank you for having me.